All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into a career path that, let's be honest, goes way beyond just clocking in and out, right? We're talking about special educational needs teaching. We really want to get past those feel-good things people say and dig into what it really takes to not just survive, but actually thrive in this kind of role.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to help us get there, we're turning to RoleCatcher. It's a platform built specifically for people who are serious about their careers, whether they're just starting out or looking for a change. They've really broken down the ins and outs of being a special educational needs teacher. And honestly, some of it's pretty eye-opening.
I think what struck me is how RoleCatcher doesn't sugarcoat anything. They lay it all out there, which is so important for anyone thinking about dedicating themselves to this field.
Totally. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of a job being meaningful, but RoleCatcher reminds us that passion only gets you so far. There are real practical considerations, too. Like, right off the bat, they don't just say these teachers help kids learn. They get specific.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
talk about optimizing communication, mobility, even a person's ability to fit into social situations. It's about helping someone reach their full potential, which obviously looks different for everyone.
And that's something that's so crucial to keep in mind, right? This isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of career. We're talking about working with people from early childhood all the way to adulthood. The skills and, honestly, the patience you need to work with a 5-year-old who's nonverbal are going to be totally different from what you need with an 18-year-old who's, say, navigating social anxiety.
Right. Talk about a dynamic field. And it's not just the students who bring that dynamic either. I mean, the work environment itself can be all over the place. RoleCatcher mentions schools, obviously, but also residential facilities, community centers. It seems like being able to adapt on the fly is non-negotiable.
Oh, 100%. You could be in a child's home one day working one-on-one, then the next you're running a group activity at a community center. And it's not even just about the location that changes, it's the emotional demands, too.
That's a whole other layer.
Right, and RoleCatcher doesn't shy away from that. They talk about dealing with challenging behaviors that can really test your limits, working with families who are under a ton of stress. Resilience and being able to stay calm under pressure are not optional in this role.
It's funny, isn't it? You don't hear that part in those inspiring career day speeches very often.
Oh.
It reminds me of this one time I was volunteering at a summer camp for kids with autism.
Oh, wow.
Amazing experience, incredibly rewarding, but man, by the end of each day, I was wiped out, emotionally drained. And that was just a few weeks, not a full-time career.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It takes a very particular type of person to do that day in and day out. And I think that's what I appreciate about RoleCatcher's approach.
Yeah.
They're upfront about the toll this work can take emotionally. The paperwork, the long hours. They want you to be prepared, not just inspired, you know.
Okay, so let's say someone eyes up for that challenge, right? They're passionate about this work. They're ready to dive in.
Yeah.
What are the skills that RoleCatcher highlights as really essential? I saw the typical teaching skills listed, but some of the others kind of surprised me.
Oh, yeah, it goes way beyond just knowing the subject matter. They have this whole breakdown of skills, and the one that really jumped out at me was social perceptiveness.
Interesting.
They actually ranked it higher than speaking skills, which I thought was fascinating.
Really? Wow. Okay, why do you think that is? Especially in this particular field.
Well, when you think about it, you're often working with individuals who might not communicate in the typical ways we're used to.
That's true.
So being able to pick up on those subtle cues, understand what someone's saying even when they're not using words. That's huge GE for building trust and really connecting on a deeper level.
That makes so much sense. I never really thought about it that way. So, to all of you listening, what skills on RoleCatcher's list surprised you?
Yeah.
Take a second to think about that. It's amazing what goes into this beyond just, lesson plans and grading.
It really is. And they don't stop there. RoleCatcher also paints a picture of what your actual career path could look like. They break it down by stages, from entry level all the way up to a principal role, and the responsibilities change drastically as you move up.
Oh, for sure. Like, at the entry level, you might be helping a student with something as basic as learning to dress themselves, whereas a principal is overseeing things like legal compliance for the entire special education department.
Right.
What a huge difference. What are some other examples of how those day-to-day tasks evolve as you gain more experience?
So at the entry level, you're super hands-on with the students. You're adapting learning materials to fit their needs, helping them with basic life skills. Think of it as building that strong foundation. But then as you move into, say, a senior teacher role, you start doing more things like developing those individualized education programs, the IEPs.
Right.
You're collaborating more with parents, therapists. You might even be training new teachers.
So you're kind of becoming less about those day-to-day tasks and more about the bigger picture of a student's education and development, right?
Exactly. And then at the principal level, you're thinking about budgets, advocating for resources for your department, making sure everything's meeting legal and ethical standards. It becomes much more about leadership and creating systemic change.
Wow, that's a massive shift in responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of growth, RoleCatcher also really stresses the importance of always learning in this field, even once you're established. Why do you think that is?
I think it's crucial for a few reasons. I mean, for one, our understanding of special needs and learning differences is constantly changing. New research comes out all the time. There are new therapies being developed. New technologies become available. To really give your students the best support possible, you have to stay ahead of the curve.
So it's not just about, like, checking a box and saying you did your professional development for the year.
No, not at all.
It's about actively seeking out that new knowledge so you can actually apply it.
Absolutely. And honestly, it's also about you as a person, as a professional. The more you learn, the more confident and competent you're going to feel in your role. And that, in turn, leads to better outcomes for your students.
That makes a lot of sense. So we've talked about the importance of always learning, but what are some tangible ways that teachers can actually make that happen? I mean, life gets busy.
Right. Well, RoleCatcher has a few suggestions. Attending conferences and workshops is great for a bunch of reasons. You get to connect with other professionals, learn about the latest research, just get inspired. Joining professional organizations can give you access to resources like journals, webinars, maybe even some mentoring opportunities. And then there's always the good old-fashioned reading of books, articles, research papers, anything that really helps you deepen your knowledge and challenge your own assumptions.
So it's like a mix of staying informed and also actively looking for those opportunities to learn and grow, right?
Yeah.
That's going to fall into your lap.
You got it. You have to be proactive and really prioritize professional development. And I think that's what I appreciate about RoleCatcher's whole philosophy. They're not just about helping you land that first job. They're about building a successful and fulfilling career in this field.
That's awesome. It's about the long game, not just the quick win. Speaking of wins, though, let's talk about those AI-powered tools RoleCatcher offers. I mean, they seem incredibly helpful for navigating the job search process, which we all know can be completely overwhelming, especially for someone who's just starting out.
Oh, absolutely. Their CV and resume builder, for example, that's a game changer.
Really?
It helps you highlight your skills and experience in a way that speaks directly to what employers are looking for.
Which is so crucial. Generic resumes just don't cut it anymore.
Exactly. And their interview prep resources, next level. They've got this database of over 120,000 practice interview questions, all organized by specific careers and skills, so you can really focus on the kinds of questions you're most likely to get asked for a special education role.
Wow, that's amazing. Like having a personalized study guide for your interview. Man, I wish I had that when I was first starting out. Those interviews used to make me so nervous.
Right. And they even have AI-powered feedback that'll actually analyze your answers and give you personalized tips on how to improve.
Okay, that is really cool. It sounds like RoleCatcher is really going all in on using technology to help people succeed in this field, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, definitely. It really is amazing what they've done with all that data. Like, they didn't just gather it and say, okay, we're done. They actually built these really sophisticated tools to make it useful for people.
Yeah, that's key, right? Data is only as good as what you do with it. So tell me more about these tools. What are some examples?
Well, for one, their CV and resume builder is a game changer, especially these days when everyone's competing for attention online. It actually analyzes job descriptions and pulls out those keywords that you need to include to really catch an employer's eye.
So it's not about just sending out those generic resumes anymore. You have to tailor it for every single job, which takes time, but it sounds like this tool can streamline that process.
Exactly. And then their interview prep is crazy good. They have over 120,000 practice interview questions, and they're not just random either. They're categorized by career and skill set.
So you can really hone in on the questions that are specific to special education roles.
Exactly. You can practice answering questions that are relevant to your experience level, maybe even specific types of disabilities you want to work with.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like having a personalized study guide for your interviews. I remember when I was interviewing for jobs, I used to get so nervous Having a resource like that would have been incredible.
Oh, tell me about it. And the best part, they even have this AI-powered feedback system built in. So you answer practice questions, and then the AI analyzes your responses and gives you these personalized tips.
Oh, wow. So it's like having a virtual interview coach in your back pocket.
Yeah.
But it's not all about just getting the job, right?
Right.
Like RoleCatcher also offers resources for people once they're actually working in the field.
Right, exactly. They have career guides to help you figure out your next steps, salary insights so you know what you're worth, even a network management tool so you can connect with other professionals. It's really like this one-stop shop for all your career needs, whether you're brand new to the field or you've been doing it for years.
That's fantastic. They
Yeah.
really thought of everything. So we've talked a lot about the practical side of things, the skills you need, how to land a job, how to keep learning. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the importance of collaboration in this field.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because RoleCatcher really emphasizes that special education teachers aren't just working in isolation, right? It's a team effort.
Oh, 100%. You're constantly interacting with parents, caregivers, therapists, speech-language pathologists, administrators. It's all about bringing together these different perspectives and areas of expertise to create the best possible learning environment for each student.
And that means having really strong communication skills is crucial, right? Not just for explaining things to your students, but also for navigating all those different relationships and advocating for your students' needs.
Exactly. You need to be able to communicate effectively with people from all walks of life, often about topics that can be really sensitive and emotionally charged. It's definitely a step beyond just, giving a lecture in a classroom.
For sure. And it makes you think about how those different career stages that RoleCatcher talks about might play into that.
Yeah, totally.
Like at the beginning of your career, you might be laser focused on mastering your own teaching techniques. But then as you move into a more senior role or even become a principal.
Exactly. Collaboration and leadership become even more important. You're not just responsible for your own classroom anymore. You're mentoring new teachers, developing programs for the whole school, maybe even advocating for policy changes at a higher level.
Right. So you really do have an opportunity to create a more inclusive and supportive environment for everyone.
100%. And that kind of leadership requires more than just a deep understanding of how kids learn, right? It also means understanding the legal and ethical considerations that come into play.
Like what RoleCatcher mentioned about a principal overseeing compliance for the entire special education department.
Yes, exactly. You need to stay up to date on all the laws and regulations related to special education, make sure your school or your district is in compliance, advocate for your students' rights. It can definitely be a lot to manage.
I bet. So it sounds like continuous learning isn't just something you do at the beginning of your career in this field. It's an ongoing process. And RoleCatcher really emphasizes that too. Why do you think it's so important to keep learning and growing throughout your entire career, especially in this particular field?
Well, for one thing, the world of special education is constantly evolving, like we've been talking about. What we know about different disabilities, learning differences, effective teaching strategies, it's always changing. New research comes out all the time, new therapies are developed, new technologies become available. If you want to stay at the top of your game and provide the best possible support for your students, you have to keep learning and adapting.
So it's not just about keeping up with the Joneses, it's about making sure you're giving your students the best possible chance to succeed.
Exactly. And honestly, staying current on the latest research and best practices can help you avoid burnout too. It keeps things fresh and engaging for you as a teacher.
That makes sense. I can see how feeling like you're constantly learning and growing could be really energizing, even when the work itself is demanding.
Oh, absolutely. It helps you stay passionate, It reminds you why you got into this field in the first place.
And what about concrete ways to actually make that happen? Because, like, we've talked about how busy life can be, especially for teachers.
Right. Well, RoleCatcher has some really great suggestions. Attending conferences and workshops is a fantastic way to network with other professionals, learn about the latest research, and get some fresh ideas. Plus, sometimes it's just nice to be around people who really get what you're going through.
Oh, totally. That sense of community can make all the difference.
Right. And then joining professional organizations can be really beneficial. They often provide access to valuable resources like journals, webinars, maybe even mentoring opportunities.
So it's like having a built-in support system and a way to stay connected to the latest developments in the field.
Exactly. And of course, there's always the good old-fashioned approach of just reading books, articles, research papers, anything that helps you dive deeper into a specific topic or challenge your current thinking.
It sounds like it's about finding a balance between staying informed about those broader trends and also making time for that deeper dive into the areas that you're most passionate about.
You got it. And honestly, I think that's a good philosophy for life in general, right? Stay curious, keep learning, and never be afraid to challenge your own assumptions.
Totally. Now, speaking of things that can be a little challenging,
Yeah.
let's talk about the elephant in the room, at least when it comes to the job search process. Application.
Oh, yeah, the dreaded application.
It can be brutal out there. But RoleCatcher actually has some really cool features that can help, especially those AI-powered tools we touched on earlier.
Right. Like their CV and resume builder, which I can't say enough good things about. It's honestly a game changer, especially in today's job market, where you're often up against hundreds of other qualified candidates.
I bet. So how does it actually work? Walk me through it.
It's super user-friendly. Basically, you upload your existing CV or resume, and then you tell the tool what kind of job you're applying for. It scans the job description, analyzes the keywords and skills that the employer is looking for, and then it suggests ways to reword your experience and skills to better match what they're looking for.
So it's like having a professional resume writer giving you personalized feedback, but without the hefty price tag.
Exactly. And it can make all the difference in getting your application noticed because, let's be honest, those hiring managers, they're often sifting through hundreds of applications. You have to make yours stand out.
Oh, absolutely. First impressions are everything. And what about interview prep? How can RoleCatcher's AI help with that? Because honestly, that's the part that always stressed me out the most.
Totally understandable. Interviews can be super nerve-wracking, but RoleCatcher's interview prep tools can help you feel so much more confident and prepared. Like we were talking about earlier, they have this massive database of practice interview questions, over 120,000 of them. And you can filter them by career, skill set, experience level, all sorts of things.
So you're not wasting time practicing answers to questions that aren't even relevant to the specific jobs you're applying for.
Exactly. And the coolest part, after you answer a practice question, their AI will actually analyze your response and give you personalized feedback. Like, it might tell you that you need to be more specific with your examples, or that you should try to work in certain keywords. It's like having a personal interview coach right there on your computer or your phone.
That's amazing. Okay, so RoleCatcher can help you put your best foot forward during the job search process. But they also offer resources for professional development and career advancement once you're already working in the field, right?
Yes, they have career guides to help you figure out your next steps, salary insights so you know what you're worth, even a network management tool.
It's like they've really thought of everything. It sounds like an incredibly valuable resource for anyone considering a career in special education, or even those who are already in the field and looking to take their career to the next level.
I agree. It's really impressive, honestly. I wish something like this had been around when I was starting out. It would have saved me so much time and stress.
For sure. But speaking of stress, we have to talk about one more crucial aspect of this profession, and it's something that often gets overlooked. Self-care.
Oh, yes. Self-care. It's so important, but it's often the first thing to go when we're feeling overwhelmed or burnt out.
Right. And this is a career that can be incredibly demanding, both emotionally and physically. So, what does self-care look like for a special education teacher? What are some things people can do to protect their own well-being while also showing up for their students?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think it looks different for everyone. It really does. There's no magic formula, unfortunately. But RoleCatcher does highlight some common themes that come up again and again. Things like setting boundaries between work life and personal life, making time for activities you genuinely enjoy, having a strong support system outside of work. Those are all really important no matter what your self-care routine looks like.
It's so easy to get caught up in the demands of the job and forget to take care of yourself. But if you're running on empty, you're not going to be able to show up for your students the way you want to.
Exactly. And that's why self-care isn't selfish. It's absolutely essential. It's about taking care of yourself so that you can continue to bring that energy and compassion and positive attitude to your students every single day.
I love that perspective. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving in this profession.
Yeah.
And that requires that holistic approach where self-care is non-negotiable, right alongside your teaching skills and all of that.
100%. Couldn't have said it better myself.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, From the very practical skills and day-to-day challenges of being a special educational needs teacher to the importance of collaborating with others, continuously learning and growing and taking care of your own well-being.
It's a lot to think about.
It really is. But at the end of the day, what makes this career path so incredibly rewarding? That's what I really want to leave our listeners with.
Well, I think it ultimately comes down to the impact you have on your students' lives.
Okay, let's talk about that impact. RoleCatcher has a whole section on success stories, real-life examples of how special educational needs teachers have made a difference. What were some of the stories that really stuck with you?
There's one that I keep thinking about. It's about this young girl with Down syndrome who was completely nonverbal when she started school.
Wow, nonverbal. That's a huge communication barrier to overcome.
It really is. But her teacher was amazing. She used this combination of sign language, picture cards, and assistive technology to help her communicate her needs, and eventually she actually started forming words.
That must have taken so much patience and dedication, not just from the student, but from the teacher, too.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't one of those overnight success stories, It took years of consistent effort and a deep, deep belief in that student's potential.
So what ended up happening?
Well, by the time she graduated high school, not only could this young woman communicate verbally, but she was actually out there advocating for disability rights. She was speaking at her local government meetings, talking to the media. It was incredible.
Wow, talk about exceeding expectations.
Yeah.
That is amazing. And it just reminds you that every student, no matter what challenges they're facing, has the potential to achieve amazing things with the right support.
100%. And I think that's what makes this career so incredibly rewarding. You're not just teaching academics, you're literally empowering these individuals to live their best possible lives.
It's about breaking down those barriers, creating a more inclusive world for everyone.
Exactly. And while those big success stories are super inspiring, I think it's often the smaller, everyday victories that keep special educational needs teachers going,
What do you mean by everyday victories? Like, what are some examples?
Well, it could be something as simple as a student who's been struggling with a particular concept finally having that aha moment.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine how rewarding that must feel for the teacher to see that look on their student's face when something finally clicks.
The best feeling. Or it could be a student who's finally able to make eye contact or hold a conversation,
Those milestones that most people take for granted can be huge for someone with special needs.
And for the teacher who helped them get there, it's this incredible reminder of why they chose this path in the first place.
To make a real, tangible difference in the lives of their students.
Exactly. It's not an easy job, we've established that, but it is incredibly fulfilling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with? What's the one thing you really want someone who's considering this career path to walk away thinking about?
I would say, first and foremost, do your research. RoleCatcher is an amazing resource. We spent this whole episode talking about them. But it's important to talk to actual people who are working in the field, maybe even volunteer in some special education settings if you can. Really get a feel for what those day-to-day realities are like, both the challenges and the rewards.
Because it's not all sunshine and roses, like we talked about.
Exactly. It can be challenging, it can be incredibly demanding, it can be really emotionally draining at times, but it can also be one of the most rewarding and fulfilling careers out there. If you're passionate about making a difference in the lives of these incredible students and you're willing to put in the work, then this could be an amazing path for you.
I love that. It's about finding your purpose and pursuing it with your whole heart, knowing that there will be ups and downs along the way.
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. This has been such an insightful deep dive into the world of special education. A huge thank you to RoleCatcher for providing such a wealth of information, and to you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey. If you're interested in learning more, be sure to check out RoleCatcher. We'll put a link in the show notes. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making a difference.